Hey, and we are the Coalition, loud and proud, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live, well, from the streets of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, where it's a cold evening. The temperature is starting to dip. And the question that we started asking actually yesterday, and we're still asking tonight: if you're homeless, sleeping outside, couch surfing, sleeping in a car, just where do you go on a night like tonight? We couldn't get answers from any. We made a few calls today to Community Care Alliance, which is past them on the left. Building is closed for the evening. We reached out to the state. We got no answers. I will say we called what's called the coordinated entry system. A nice woman there gave us a list of places around the state, some of them well known to us. Pawtucket Heating, Cooling and Warming Center, as we like to call it, run by the people at Open Doors, who do a fine job, but they're open all the time. Is there anything put in place for the hundreds or more people living on the streets in Rhode Island on a night when the temperature is already dipped to 26 degrees? There's a snow cover, and it's largely expected that the temperature will fall below 10 degrees. Now, in past years, well before the controversy of the pallet homes, or the lack of pallet homes, there were at least efforts made, press releases sent out, places to go. But that doesn't appear to be the case anywhere. Outside of the examples of the activist community and the private homeless intervention efforts, there seems to be remarkable little energy by the state. Our focus, of course, has been on Woonsocket and Pawtucket, primarily Woonsocket, through the efforts of our organization, Libertarian Mutual Aid. For folks who don't know, we're not content to simply complain about the problem here, coalition land. We felt compelled that we need to do something. So, any given week, myself and a handful of volunteers will visit any upwards of 5, 10, 15 or more homeless encampments, as well as during the week, connections with meal kitchens, food pantries, and occasional visits to the sidewalks of Providence, Woonsocket, Pawtucket. We deliver water, primarily, but also harm reduction supplies, occasionally food. A lot of people do great work on food. So we focus on water. Interestingly enough, no one does. But we're here in Woonsocket tonight because we're a bit confused. As in most places around the state, a lot of noise has been made by government, about sweeping people out of encampments. Cities like Cranston have attempted to criminalize homelessness by attaching a fine. They were forced to back away from that, but seem hell-bent on pushing the homeless into Providence. No profiles encouraged showing up in Cranston anytime soon, at least from the government. Again, I have to give Pawtucket credit. There are several organizations, and they do get cooperation from the city at some level, particularly, again, the Warming Center. But in Woonsocket, well, what is there? Where do you go? The system is overwhelmed. There are no rush to create additional shelter beds. There's already been one direct death from exposure to the outside. And this week, a beloved activist and formerly or somewhat formerly homeless individual known to all of us as Diamond passed away this week. Many argue from the cumulative effects of having to live in really despicable conditions. So, over the next half hour or so, we're going to visit some landmarks in Woonsocket. We're going to see exactly what's available. in our trusty 11-foot cargo van. And no trip would be complete without, of course, a tour, well, of the Diggity bus, or as we like to say, the no Diggity bus. So we're here in what is yet still apparently an abandoned, unused, unmoved Diggity bus. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested into this vehicle. Earlier this week, at the Woonsocket City Council meeting, I challenged them to answer rumors as to whether or not the vehicle was actually in any level of operation. Rumors were floating around the city that the heating system had failed and the bus was simply not operational. So here we are at the lovingly referred to as the no Diggity bus. And here it sits. This is money that was advocated for by Woonsocket then Vice Council Chair Valerie Gonzalez, now a sitting council member, not the vice chair, under this administration. This was meant to be the, if not an answer, one of several answers to the homeless issue. The sheer stupidity and banality of investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into a piece of equipment, most of which, or a significant portion of which, revolved around the use of a bus, which would never be intended to use as a bus, seemed to have missed everyone. This money easily could have been invested in any one of a number of abandoned buildings here in Woonsocket, with a hope to creating at least some type of transitional housing, with potentially wraparound services. But in Woonsocket, if you're going to provide services, the dreaded V word is in full force if you're a community member. And there are numerous organizations in this town that do literally the work of the Lord on so many different levels. I won't even begin to name all of them because I can't. Some of them aren't known to me. I just haven't met them yet. But when it comes to the establishment, the state-ordained, city-blessed services, you're looking at it. Non-functional, non-compass mentee, apparently incapable of maintaining heating. Now, at the city council meeting, I challenged the city council to prove to me that it was in working operation. I was told someone would get back to me, and it's not. And no one got back to me. Rumors abound how the city is about to invest in a replacement heating system for this bus. How much that costs, whether it needs to go out to bid, what the timing on that, who knows? But again, tomorrow it will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 degrees. So one of a few things will happen. Potentially people will suffer from exposure. Potentially people will die. If they don't die, again, the cumulative effects that appear to have taken the life of, and I mean this genuinely, a beloved friend, Diamond, will rack up on yet the bodies, again, of the less fortunate. Yet political grandstanding results in this. The no Diggity, the lack of Diggity bus, continues to absorb hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wow. It appears that in addition to the mechanical issues, which have been persistent in the operation of the bus, the absence of any contract in order to provide the associated service with running the bus, staffing the bus, or for that matter, virtually anything in this city, is tied down in, well, the normal balderdash that exists with the state of Rhode Island. And one need only look at the pallet homes in Providence to understand exactly what that means. There, a year more, again, unfathomable amounts of money put into the moral equivalent of what we like to refer to at the coalition as she sheds, can't be operational because of the absence of some form of paint or, some sort of fire law, which, by the way, we were treated to the most recent housing czar, another $250,000 a year baby, telling us how much she was concerned about the safety of Rhode Islanders, so concerned about the safety that they'll let them sleep outside on nights like this. But getting back to Woonsocket, the cabal is real. The housing department, the erstwhile housing department of the state of Rhode Island, has yet to enact a contract with the city. That needs, of course, to go before the city council be approved. It has not yet appeared. So the prospects of that happening anytime soon, because the poverty industry that exists in this state relies on one significant matter: money. Community Care is an organization that's based largely in Rhode Island, largely in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and is a property owner par excellence. Half a dozen or so properties are owned, worth millions. We're going to be, we're in receipt of their holdings, and we're going to do a little analysis on that this holiday week. But, unless the meter's running, they're not going to put any resources, despite being the recipient of tens of millions of dollars of grant money. And, of course, big salary syndrome is there as well. Lots of people making money, air quotes, helping the poor. So, I stand before you with one of the two most significant displays of failure in the state. Again, you've got the pallet homes in Providence, but you've got the no Diggity bus in Woonsocket, sitting idly in a night when the potential exists for the temperature to dip below 10 degrees, and offering no value whatsoever. The only value, of course, being the fulfillment of the vanity play that is known as Councilwoman Valerie Gonzalez, and all the other accomplices that were part of this. Lisa Baldelli Hunt, the crime family of Lisa Baldelli Hunt, who is so proud to portray this. And by the way, at some point, we'll share the press conference that we were at, where this was touted mercilessly until yours truly kept asking question after question, upon which the press conference was rapidly shut down. So take a look, drink in the failure, and understand the level of suffering that will take place by our brothers and sisters here in Rhode Island as a result of this failure, as a result of the incompetence, the stupidity, the vanity, the greed, the avarice, the incompetence of the wise men and women who run this state. Understand that if that money had been invested into any one of a number of abandoned buildings here in Woonsocket, you'd at least have the opportunity for people to be dry, warm, safe, and perhaps having a good meal and a decent night's sleep. But that's not to be had. Instead, as I can tell you, I tour on a weekly basis along with a couple of great partners in crime, Josh and David and Cameron and a few others who have recently joined us. We schlep around supplying some basics, probably not even putting a chink in the armor of this terrible problem. But it gives us an insight. It gives us a view. We see the homeless in Pawtucket at a time when a stadium could attract $10 million in government money. Stadium doomed to failure, not unlike its evil cousin in Worcester, who now has to receive welfare checks from the city of Worcester at a time when that city is suffering. Yep, you see the plows are out. So, is the problem intractable? Possibly. Could we all do more? Just as, again, that dreaded V word of volunteers. Well, so many people in the city do this. Listen, I've used them as an example a lot over the last few weeks, but the American Legion chapter 85, is just one of a number of organizations in the city who, through private volunteerism and a lot of hard work, supplied apparently hundreds of brand new coats to residents of Woonsocket and the greater Woonsocket area, who routinely deliver food to veterans who've fallen on hard times, who routinely just simply do the right thing because it's the right thing. And there's so many others. Our good friend Gene, Chef Gene, comes to mind. You know, a variety of churches in this area. Old school, stepping up, volunteering. And as is so often the case, those often with the least volunteer and give the most. Now again, compare and contrast that to the poverty industry in this state. $200,000 plus salaries abound. Ben Lessing makes just shy of $200,000. He's the CEO of Community Cares, who is so willing to help the poor as long as the spigots of cash stay open. Where are they tonight? Well, our next stop is going to the Serenity Center to see if that's open tonight. So again, if folks are sleeping in tents, as we know they are because we talk to them on a weekly basis, if they're sleeping in cars and parking lots, as we've met a few in our travels here over the last year and a half, nothing's happening for them. And in fact, tomorrow, because it's the weekend, New Beginnings and a handful of church efforts on Sunday are the only meals that these people will face. Now, for those who are going to hate on those folks for alleged poor life choices, suffering from addiction, you'll find no home here. We are all fragile in the eyes of the Lord. We are all. There is no one better. A little bit of luck, a more fortunate beginning, perhaps not falling prey to any number of one of the addictive challenges in our society now. Does that make you a better person? I don't know. I'm not here to judge. The only people I hold in judgment are the government, both elected and self-appointed, and those who would seek to profit from it. So, you see it right in front of you. The no diggity bus. Ms. Zubo, no, I see no one here. It's dark. I see no one. There are no footprints in the snow. There's nothing to lead me to believe that this is doing anything besides sitting here. Folks may know me as a libertarian. Yes, I am a libertarian. Because when I see the force and coercion of government used to wrest away countless dollars, the efforts of so many, only to end like this, confirms my faith in the inability of government to accomplish virtually anything. And again, when I look back at private efforts in this community, the nobility of folks willing to work for virtually nothing, yep, I'm a libertarian. Take a little ride around the Diggity bus. You take a look inside. Nope, snow covered. Nothing going up here. So our next stop on our little late night tour of Woonsocket will be the Serenity Center. Now, myself, a couple years ago, and by the way, the collaboration between an organization called the Maligned Project, which is an all-volunteer organization running on a threadbare budget with private contributions and some help from a couple of foundations. But again, we're talking dollars. Again, a lot of sweat equity, a lot of volunteer work. That collaboration between myself, your mother's favorite breakfast, great restaurant, about to move from Pawtucket up, I believe, to North Smithfield, but who've been pioneers in providing voluntary meals based on private collections by individuals who go to the restaurant, add to their menu a charge for a feed the homeless. Because those folks have demonstrated over a couple of years that they can provide a healthy breakfast, like a really good breakfast, for about $3 or $4. That, and then eventually what became Libertarian Mutual Aid, started about 2 years ago, Christmas Eve, when we ran into similar weather. Then the city of Woonsocket, under the thrall, if you will, of the Lisa Baldelli Hunt crime organization, provided nothing on a day like tomorrow has the potential to be. So a group of people just threw together a few $100. My buddy Tony Sully, great guy, great restaurant, got out his food truck, and we went on the road that day. And wow, the collaboration that's happened since then. The craziest part of that day wasn't just the bad weather. It was horrific. It was so cold. Anyone who knows me knows that my willingness to spend time outside of a kitchen is legendary. My willingness to spend time inside of a kitchen is nearly non-existent. I even helped in the kitchen because it was so damn cold. That was the only place I could stay warm. It wasn't even remarkable to see the look of death on so many people who were living in 5 and 10 below weather that day. Intense. What was most remarkable about that day was the notion that we had to soft pedal our efforts, that we couldn't, if you will, be too obvious, because that would lead to the shutdown, or potentially, of a number of the encampments, which were the only thing holding, in some cases, folks' lives together. It was all for naught, by the way, because I believe it was a couple months later, and I have this on film, one of the encampments that we supported was actually bulldozed. And again, I'll never forget the sight of brand new tents being crushed by a front loader belonging to the city of Woonsocket. There I learned the saying, and I always mess this up, let me get this straight: just because you took our tent doesn't mean we can afford the rent. There are some people who object to the notion that I'm a libertarian. How can I believe in government aid? Well, no, I actually, all of this is a direct reaction to our government's essentially hijacking efforts to help the poor by confiscatory taxes, which are supposed to lead to some sort of social safety welfare net, whatever that is, when in fact all they're doing is taking away the money and the ability the ability of many of us to help, while at the same time creating legal obstacles, it's late, to those who would wish to help. So the government effectively co-opts by both financial grift and a whole lot of legalese from folks like us diving in wholeheartedly. Well, to that I say balderdash. Enough of that. Tonight is proof positive that your government has failed you. Which is a few weeks ago, where there was this great big press conference held in Woonsocket City Hall. Lots of talk, lots of meetings, lots of collaboration, lots of coordination. Yours truly, despite arguably being a provider of services in this town, and a reporter who covers Woonsocket city politics routinely, was not invited. I got an email about an hour beforehand. Couldn't make it. I was too far away. Kind of missed it. I was pretty PO'd that night. A little bit of ego there. You know, how dare you not at least call me so I can just stand there and bear witness. Well, again, we see what garbage it is. We see what nonsense. And I'll tell you, even though this is supposed to be a family event, we see what bullshit it is. Because where are those people tonight? Home, warm and cozy, warm and dry. With nothing to show. Nope. Suffice to say that the professional safety net, the welfare industry, all right, in this town, if the meter ain't running, they ain't showing up. And by the way, that's a shot at management. I know a lot of caseworkers who've spent time out in the field working in incredibly difficult situations, truly doing the work of the Lord, subjecting themselves very often to a great deal of physical duress, working in difficult, often unsanitary conditions, exposed to all sorts of just bad situations. A couple I know are routinely out sick, seemingly every few months, out for a few days because of what they're exposed to, the conditions they work in, usually for barely above minimum wage, despite being called on to offer psychological counseling, medical advice, if you will, in the form of addiction, if not treatment, then harm intervention and harm reduction. They're all subjected to that. But the $250,000 babies, they're intact. Because they're worth $200,000 a year. You know why? Because the other folks down the aisle, down the hall, who are making $250,000 or $3,000, say they're worth it. But where's the accountability for results? How can we have a situation like tonight where people are just going to suffer and they're getting rich? You know, it sounds so innocuous these days. $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. Let's do some car guy math. The new head of housing for the state of Rhode Island, the newest housing czar, Deborah, what's her name? In the 4 years that she's probably slated to be here, she'll make a cool $1 million. How about that? A little different way of looking at the numbers, right? Car guy math. I'm former car guy. $1 million. And yet her career, which we're going to do some deep diving into, has been nothing but a poster child for mediocrity. Lots of programs, lots of conversations, lots of high-level meetings. I have this, having met her once now, I have this mental image of her walking around, clipboard firmly in hand, ready to tackle the next bar graph or the next PowerPoint presentation. All the while getting rich. Is that what we bargained for when we joined this quote-unquote social compact? No, I don't think so. By the way, in terms of that social compact, my libertarian friends, if any of them are watching or watch this, they'll laugh because, as I like to say, I don't remember signing that social compact. I don't. So, wow. Streets are quiet. No one's on the streets. Nights like this, a lot of couch surfing goes on. You know, friends, temporary acquaintances. A lot of kind people open up their doors. I know several. I know people who are paying for people to stay in hotel rooms tonight out of their own personal pocket. You know, they say you're never supposed to ask a question that you don't know the answer of, particularly if you're in the media or you're an activist. Well, I'm going to ask this. Ben Lessing, how many people did you put in hotel rooms tonight? Lisa Baldelli Hunt, how about you? Mayor, you kicking any do-re-mi tonight to put people into a few hotel rooms to stay warm? Maybe have a hot shower? There's a whole lot of folks who have written about the power of uninterrupted safe sleep. A couple of nights in a hotel with a door that locks and a private bathroom on really difficult nights like tonight lead to a level of rejuvenation that is remarkable, according to the experts. Absolutely remarkable. So, you know, where are any of you folks? You certainly have the dough. You certainly make enough money. I'd like to know. And I could be dead wrong. Some of those folks might be quietly writing checks might be quietly doing all sorts of work. But I'd like to know. Why do I feel like I'm entitled to know? Because all of you are getting rich off the backs of government. No pressure, no obstacles. Put in your solid 8, 9, maybe 9.5 hour day. Nothing. So I'd like to understand that. I'd like to understand why the working poor in this town and regular folks in the middle class are the ones who seem to do all the work. Why they're actually the ones contributing. So we're going to stop by next something called the Serenity Center. And in the past, and again, there's some great people who work there. In the past, they've served as a place to go on a night like tonight. Temperature's dropping again. According to my measurement, we're down to 25 here. It's slated to get colder. By the way, I'm told that at 1 o'clock tomorrow at New Beginnings in Woonsocket, there's going to be a holiday celebration and a luncheon. So here's what I'm going to ask. For folks in the area, stop by and, stroke Chef Gina check. She's in the process of building her own facility, if you will, which will have the opportunity to significantly increase her ability to service those with the least amongst us. And believe me, it's all labor of love. One of the hardest working people I've ever met in the world in general. So stop by. And if you're one of those organizations where you're going to stroke a cool $500,000 million over the next 3 or 4 years, yeah. Time to, as the late great Vincent A. Buddy Cianci would say, it's time to come Coco. And if you are, and I'm wrong, listen. If I called you out and you're doing the right thing, I'll be the first to apologize. But I'd like to see it. So, in about 700 feet, we're going to pull up to the Serenity Center. And again, the folks who work there have done some great stuff over the last couple of years. I know it was on more than one occasion. And again, these are people who deal with some of the most difficult situations. So here we are. Let's see. Bear with us a second here. By the way, for all of you tuning in, my name is Pat Ford. I'm part of the Coalition Radio Network. We're a tiny independent media outlet, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio. You can find me under Pat Ford. A lot of my stuff goes directly to Pat Ford now because of the vagaries of Facebook. Started something with a couple of great people called Libertarian Mutual Aid. Our motto is, we're not from the government, we're actually here to help. You go to libertarianmutualaid.org. But there are other organizations to donate to. There's plenty of good. And you know what? If you're not from Rhode Island, find someplace in your community, because there are organizations like Chef Gene, like Milagros Project, that exist literally in every community. So let's take a look. I probably should turn off the light in case someone actually is in there. But let's see. Cinema verite, people. Yes, that's the sound of Pat getting his ass out of the truck. Ugh! Hey, and for all the folks joining us, thanks for taking the time tonight. Nope, nothing gone on here. I guess community care didn't get a big enough check. Because again, with them, the meter's running. Tens of millions of dollars. Lots of private property. So where do we go next in our magical mystery tour? One of my favorite places, the Vita Church. Now, if you're from Wooney, as we lovingly refer to Woonsocket, you know all about the Vita Church. Former Catholic church, taken over by councilwoman and the husband of councilwoman and Val. And it became notorious in our book last year when the governor of Rhode Island actually put out a press release of a number of places that were set up as warming centers, specifically into a snowstorm that fortunately wasn't nearly as desperate as was declared to be. And the Vita Church, and by the way, this center that we just pulled out of was the primary warming center listed in Woonsocket, and they did a nice job. I came by. A few of my friends may or may not remember that video. Nothing particularly remarkable about the fact, except that you had some people working very hard here. The Vita Church, which is a non-denominational Christian church based in Woonsocket, was listed as an alternative location. I'm not sure what that means, an alternative location. And I asked the governor, I asked the then housing czar, Stefan Pryor, what that meant. And they couldn't tell me either. So we paid a visit to the Vita Church. Now, the Vita Church, as you'll see, is this hulking, Gothic-like Catholic church. Now, no longer a Catholic church, but again, this non-denominational Christian church was listed in the state website and listed in this governor's press release as an alternative location. What do I mean by I don't know what that means? Well, in a bad night, if it's storming out and it's really cold, does that mean it gets turned on at some point? How do you tell people it's turned on? So we paid a visit there. It was dark, unplowed, no signs anywhere, and we were later told by the councilwoman that the issue there was they hadn't been funded. Because, of course, if you're part of the professional poverty industry, you don't get funded, you ain't working. Yet these are folks who cloak themselves as public servants. Individuals who are there for the common good, who are making a lot of money doing it. So we're going to pop into the NAB, the Vita Church, and we'll take a swing by there, and we'll see just how dedicated Ms. Gonzalez is when, again, the money ain't flowing. Forgive my cynicism, folks. And again, for you folks who are joining us tonight, thank you. Vita Church on Prospect Street in Woonsocket. 3 minutes away. And then we'll sum up the evening's activities. Again, if you're from Woonsocket, Milagros Project, fantastic. New Beginnings, fantastic. That's just to name a few. Just to name a few. But organizations like that are everywhere. Individual churches running food pantries. American Legions and VFW and Vietnam Veterans organizations providing real help and real support to the veterans in our communities who served our nation and now, whether it be medical issues that are hangovers, if you will, from their service to us, poverty, addiction as a result of what they encountered in any one of a number of wars or police actions, They're out there. And they'll take a little bit of money. And the common denominator here is they manage to make the money work. Of course, if you're not paying $200,000 salaries, you got a lot left over to buy food, to buy clothing, hotel rooms as interventions. Yeah, I will tell you from personal experience, experts agree, that if you're not paying millions of dollars in salaries from all of these self-appointed, self-elected wise men and women, you can do a lot of great work. And the best thing, by the way, to donate is money. You can check these organizations out. They're the ones who are the workers are well known in the community. The ones who are the grifts are well known in the community. What do I mean by that? Of course, if you've got gently used clothing. By the way, if you've got gently used clothing, I heard that in Woonsocket. Our good friend Monique is a collection agent. We pick up. I've got a truck full of clothing right now that's going to go to the Matheson Street Church. Here's another organization that is astonishing in the work it does. The Matheson Street Church. It's a Methodist church in downtown Providence that holds services, but they've taken this big hulking church and turned it into a community center. Imagine if you're homeless and you have no place to go to the bathroom. There's public restrooms there. There's meals there. There's church in there. There's 12-step groups there. And what they do, one of many magical things they do at the Matheson Street Church is they take all the clothing that we collect. They have a big sorting room, and they get volunteers. Some of them, those volunteers are people who, in fact, who receive services from the church. Kevin runs the church, and he is, if there are saints that walk amongst us, he is one of them. Holy cow. But in the heart of downtown Providence, they served some of the toughest situations in Rhode Island. With grace and dignity and cheer and a smile. I don't know how they do it, but they do. And that's the point. And you know what most of them do? Yep, that dreaded V word, volunteer. So, there are plenty of places where a little bit of money and a little bit of time will go an awfully long way. So we're driving up to Prospect Street, and we're going to see if there's anything going on at the Vita Church. And we may do this one more time tomorrow night, just to kind of keep following up. You know, the constant refrain of anyone doing independent media is to please share this. And it's not just for the few shekels we might get, the little pennies that we'll get from Facebook. But really, it's the recognition that what we're trying to do here in our own small way. Yep, church is dark, but we're going to swing around so you get a better look at it. We're trying to bring recognition to an issue. And it's become apparent to me in the few years I've been at this that shame is a powerful motivation. Shame is a powerful tool. And when shame is reflected on people, they respond. So I'm hoping tonight provides a tiny bit of soul searching, maybe a little churching, and perhaps a few people will realize tomorrow morning that we should be helping people all the time. But particularly as we approach tomorrow's weather, we need to have something in place. And if government is going to co-opt that by taking all the money and erecting so many legal barriers for the ability of individuals to come together and work, that damn it, it's time they are accountable. I'll tell you another quick story. Last Thanksgiving, I'll just pass one, but year before, I remember I was on a Facebook group in North Attleboro, and for some reason it came to my attention that, unfortunately, as is happening in so many cases, a local community group that, who for a generation had provided a Thanksgiving meal, was no longer in a position to do that. And they'd had to cancel. And a hue and cry rose up amongst the people. What will we do? So I just suggested in my naivete that, I don't know, maybe people could kick it a little bit to another agency who does it, and they can expand theirs. Again, you donate $20 to a food pantry or a food kitchen, never mind 50 or 100, but let's just say $20. You don't go to Dunkies a couple times that week. That goes an awfully long way. And someone said to me, and I'm not criticizing them because I think it was out of naivete, someone said to me, are we allowed to do that? And I just was kind of stunned. What do you mean, are we allowed? Of course you're allowed. Well, do we have to apply to the government to do that? And they were being sincere, and I'm not mocking them, because there is this overriding notion amongst people that you need permission to engage in basic human kindness. I don't know what to say to that. No, you don't need permission. You don't need to create some vast organization. I suggest that they pull together some cash, and if they didn't want to give cash, go buy a gift card at Stop and Shop or Market Basket or BJ's Wholesale Club, and let the people go shopping. Cash is great because, by the way, the more sophisticated organizations can buy food at wholesale for a lot less money than an individual can. These people aren't going to Stop and Shop. They're typically going to, in our case, we have a relationship with a produce wholesaler who occasionally, when we get some extra cash, we try to buy some food for the Milagros. And by the way, what you're seeing is the Vita Church. And what you're seeing is a dark building, a couple of individual lights, no cars, no signs, no help. So these are the organizations that have purported to compete for money and resources from you, the taxpayer. And where are they tonight? I guess they didn't get the checks. Here's the problem. The state of Rhode Island's broke. There is no more money. After living off of COVID and ESSER funds and ARPA money and APRA money and this money, that money, there's no more money. I'm not sure where these folks are ultimately going to go to support themselves. Oh, isn't that great? There are cones blocking, if you will, the walkway up to the church. Isn't that magic? The money's going to come from us. So, in the libertarian world, we talk about something called decentralization, which is a wide-ranging set of concepts. But ultimately, if you boil it all down, there's a saying, take human action. What does that mean to all of us? Simply, let's get together and solve the problem on our own. Neuter government. Cut out the waste and the crap and the profiteering, the careerism, and you'll take with that the stupidity, the ignorance, the greed, the failure. Now let's just try to help people on our own. And maybe if you live in Woonsocket or wherever you live in Woonsocket, the question should be, again, you had this great big press conference. The timing of it immediately before the election, I'm sure was a coincidence. I don't ever want to be cynical. But where is that effort right now? And where is it going to be tomorrow? Because according to every single person that I've spoken to in government, and speaking even more loudly are the people who didn't return my calls today, there is apparently no effort whatsoever other than the handful of activists I know who are quietly working in the background to get people into hotel rooms, get them fed tomorrow, and get them warm. And isn't that always the way? Hey, John. Hi, buddy. How you doing? Good to see you. So on that note, I think I'm going to bring tonight's Magical Mystery Tour to an end. I appreciate the stalwarts who stuck it out with me. To get to work tomorrow. We don't have to wait for these people. We can succeed despite their best efforts. If you live in Woonsocket, I've given you a couple places you can reach out to. A tiny bit of money from a lot of people goes a long way. You know, I'm often discussing the Bernie Sanders phenomenon. What Bernie and a handful of people before him, but particularly Bernie Sanders, was able to do, and I'm no fan of Bernie Sanders, but let's just say one of the great things he was able to accomplish was to demonstrate the power of large quantities of small contributions. What that could mean politically, what that could mean in terms of human services. So it's just math. If a whole lot of people cough up $20 this weekend, and again, I'll use Milagros and New Beginnings as a perfect example in Woonsocket. If you kick up money to them, 100% of that is going to go directly to the cause. 100%. You will simultaneously empower them, and you'll begin to neuter the big welfare industry that exists. Addition by subtraction. Support individual efforts of people who take human action, and you simultaneously take away this perceived power that people like Dan McKee and Deborah, what's her name, the new czar, and all these grotesque characters who think that they, because they've been self-appointed, think that they control our world. And worse yet, they actually think they provide value to us, and they don't. So, my name is Pat Ford. For people in Woonsocket, I'm starting a radio show in Woonsocket on AM 1380 on January 8th at 9 o'clock once a week. We'll talk about these issues. We're going to talk a lot of positives. I'm hell-bent on bringing on and giving an opportunity to meet people in this community who are doing great things. And by example, should effectively their good works and their great intentions and their personal sacrifices should effectively shame the failures of those who are in leadership. So, we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting at facebook.com/Coalition Radio, Facebook, Pat Ford, AM 1380, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_Radio, whole bunch of places. And by the way, you can do the same thing. Folks, have a great night. Thanks for spending time with me.